Welcome to Money and Marriage Made Simple, the show for couples who want to get on the same page financially and strengthen their relationship along the way. I'm your host, Tina Bunn, a financial coach and wife who knows what it's like to feel the stress of money in marriage. Every other week, I'll bring you practical tips, real conversations, and simple strategies to help you take control of your money together, one small step at a time. Let's jump in. Welcome back to another episode of Money and Marriage Made Simple. I'm Tina. I want to start by talking about something that almost never comes up in personal finance content. Not the final payment, not the celebration, not the screenshot of the zero balance, none of the confetti. I want to talk about what happens after. Everyone has a version of the debt payoff moment in their head. You've probably seen it, the couple holding up a sign with the number crossed out, the happy crying, the feeling of freedom, or if you're a Ramsey fan, those debt-free screams that personally always give me the chills. Those moments are real. I'm not going to take anything away from them, but I do want to talk about what came after that moment for us, because it wasn't what I expected. And the more I talked about it to other couples, the more I think this particular conversation is missing from most of what gets put out there about debt payoff. So today, I'm going to say it. The honest version, the parts nobody photographs. I think some of you, whether you're just starting out, you're deep in the grind, or right at the edge of that finish line, some of you need to hear this. So this is the story I had in my head. Zach and I would make the last payment, and there would be this significant cinematic moment. We would feel the weight lift immediately. We would wake up the next morning as visibly different people. I had this image of walking into a store and just buying something without doing the math in my head first. This image of saying yes to things without calculation running behind it, of money just feeling different overnight. Here's what actually happened. The day that we made the last payment, I logged into the account, I made the transfer, and then just sat there for a minute. Zach came into the room and we looked at the screen together. We both breathed deeply, and it did feel like there was a weight lifted. But there was no confetti, there was no dramatic music, just the sound of our house, which sounded exactly the same as it had that morning. Then I said, I didn't know it would feel like this. I said I didn't realize how much weight the debt had been putting on me, on both of us, until it was gone. It was not an acute pain. It was more like a low pressure I'd gotten so used to that I'd stopped noticing it. And then suddenly it wasn't there. And the absence of it was so noticeable that I didn't quite know how to feel. It wasn't this explosion of relief that I'd been imagining. It was just quiet. And then slowly, over the next few days, something started opening up. We didn't throw a party. We didn't go out to dinner. We didn't do a debt-free scream. We sat at the kitchen table and we talked about what we wanted our life to look like now that debt wasn't hanging over us. And that conversation, that quiet, unhurried conversation about the future, was the thing I actually had been waiting for. I just didn't know it. Okay, let's break it down. Here's 5 things that surprised me about being debt-free and things that I think a lot of people don't talk about. Truth number 1 is it feels weird before it feels good. When you've been in scarcity mode, when your brain has been doing the math every single month, calculating what you can and cannot spend, running every purchase through the filter of, is this okay? That pattern doesn't just get turned off because the number changed. The first few months after we paid off our debt, I would catch myself still doing the math, still second-guessing purchases, even though we had the money. I would still feel this small jolt of guilt when I bought something that wasn't necessary. I bought a shirt once, just a regular shirt from a regular store, And when I stood in the checkout line, there was this low hum of guilt that took me a second to identify. I had the money, we weren't behind on anything, and I still felt like I was doing something I shouldn't. John Deloney is a therapist that I deeply respect. He described this as your brain putting a GPS pin in those moments that previously caused stress. These GPS pins don't disappear just because the threat does. Your body needs time to understand that the rules have changed. So if you feel disoriented after paying off debt, if the freedom feels a little uncomfortable instead of purely exhilarating, that's not a sign that something is wrong with you. That's your nervous system catching up to your reality. So just give it time. Truth number 2 is new fears show up to replace the old ones. This one surprised me, and I've heard it from other couples that I've coached along the way. Once the debt fear is gone, I expected to feel peaceful, and I did, but underneath that peace, I started noticing new anxieties moving in. What if we made a bad decision now and end up back there? What if something happens to Zach's income? What if we let ourselves relax and lose discipline that got us here? I want to be really clear. This is normal. It's not a sign that you're incapable of enjoying financial peace. It doesn't mean that you aren't grateful. It's simply the next layer of work that you need to do. And the good news is that the tools you built to get out of debt, the budget, the weekly check-in, the habit of making financial decisions together, those same tools will help you navigate this as well. The goal was never fearlessness. The goal is learning to take the next right step in spite of the fear. And that part of the work doesn't end when the debt does. Here's truth number 3. You have to figure out who you are without the debt. This one sounds abstract, but let me explain. For Zach and I, paying off our debt had become our shared mission. It was the principle of our financial life. It was the goal that structured our conversations, our budget, our decisions. It gave us a shared language and a shared direction. And when it was done, when we'd actually finished paying off our debt, there was a strange in-between period. We kept looking at each other like, okay, what now? It was like we'd been running towards something for so long that stopping felt unfamiliar. We needed a new direction. We needed a new goal. And here's what I've come to believe about that period. It's actually one of the gifts of the debt payoff journey that nobody talks about. Because figuring out what you're doing next after the debt is the first time many people get to dream together about money without the shadow of what they owe getting in the way. You stop running away from something and start running towards something. That's not a problem to solve. That's an invitation to finally breathe. Truth number 4 is the people around you don't always celebrate it the way you need or want them to. I'm not going to be dramatic here. Most people in our lives were genuinely happy for us. They said congratulations. They thought it was amazing. But very few of them actually understood it. Very few of them had any sense of what $50,000 in 11 months had actually required of us. The months that were really hard, the things we said no to over and over, the times one of us wanted to stop and the other one had to hold the line. That's so great is a lovely thing to say, but it doesn't quite capture what it cost us. And I remember thinking, I wish there were people who actually got it, who had done the same hard thing, who could sit with me and say, yeah, I know what that took. I know what you gave up to get there. That's part of why community matters so much in this journey. Not because you need validation from strangers on the internet, but because the people who have done the same hard thing can witness your experience in the same way that other people, through no fault of their own, they simply can't. And here's the 5th truth, maybe the most important of all 5. The habits you built matter more than the number you hit. The budget we built during our debt payoff journey didn't go away when the debt did. The weekly check-ins didn't stop. The shared decision-making, the way we talked about money together, the transparency we built into our financial life, those things became permanent. And I've seen more times than I can count now the difference between the couples who paid off the debt and they kept those habits versus the couples who paid off the debt and slowly went back into their old patterns. The couples who kept the habits stayed out of debt. They started building wealth and they continued being a team. The couples who didn't keep those habits, they were back in the same place within a year or two. Not because they were lazy or irresponsible, but because they lost the structure that had been holding everything together. What you become in the process of paying off debt is the real win. The zero balance is just the confirmation of who you've become. I want to take a few minutes and speak directly to you. Not the couple at the beginning of this journey where everything is new and the motivation is still fresh. Not the couple at the end where the finish line is so close you can keep going on those hard days. I want to talk to the couple in the middle. The middle is where the excitement of starting has worn off and the excitement of finishing hasn't shown up yet. It's the month where nothing dramatic happens, where you're just still doing it. You're still rebuilding the budget. You're still saying no to the things that you want. You're still having the weekly check-in even when you're tired and you would rather not. You're still making the sacrifice even though nobody is watching and the next milestone seems so far away. I want to say something to you. The middle is where the identity forms. Not at the beginning when you're fired up and the new system feels exciting and different. Not at the end when the victory is visible, when everyone can see what you've done because there's that zero balance. In the middle, in the months that aren't special, in the budget meeting that happens even though you're both exhausted, in the no that you say for the 100th time because the end goal matters more than the purchase. Every time you show up in the middle, every time you do the ordinary, unglamorous work of continuing, you are becoming the person who finishes this. You create real, lasting change. You may not see it happening. You can't because you're deep in it, but it's happening. I also want to say this. The middle is hard to do alone. It's hard to stay consistent without people who understand what you're working toward, without someone checking in, without a place to go when you've had a hard month and you just need to hear that it's still worth it. The finish line is real. I've been there. I know what it feels like when the number hits zero. You will get there. Just keep going. Here's the lesson I want to leave you with. Debt freedom is not a destination. If you're doing it right, it's an identity that you grow into, slowly, imperfectly, and usually without realizing it's happening. The growing, the showing up in the hard months, having the conversations you'd rather avoid, building those new habits, learning to face the numbers together instead of separately, that's the part that changes you. The zero balance is the visible proof of who you've already become in the process, which means that if you're in the middle right now and the finish line feels impossibly far away and you're not sure you're going to make it to the end, I want you to hear this. You are becoming the person who gets there. Every month you keep going, every check-in you show up for, every hard conversation you choose instead of avoiding it, you are becoming who you are meant to be. I hope this episode met you where you are today, whether you're at the beginning, the end, or deep in the middle of your journey. I'm really glad you're here. Before I go, a quick word about something that's coming in June. It's called the Debt Free Collective. It's a monthly membership for couples who are in the middle of their debt payoff journey. Or maybe you're just starting and you don't want to do the hard part alone. Every month you get a community of couples doing the same hard work. You get accountability so you don't quietly slip in month 2 or 3. And you get monthly group coaching with me. If you have a friend who's in the middle of their debt payoff journey right now, the one who's grinding and you can see that they're working so hard, send them this episode. That's the best thing you can do for someone who needs to hear that the middle is worth it. Thank you so much for being here today. This one meant a lot to me. Take good care of yourself, take good care of your marriage, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me today on Money and Marriage Made Simple. If you found this episode helpful, you'll love my essential money checklist for couples. You can grab that for free on the link in the show notes. Episodes will drop every other week, so be sure to follow the show so you never miss a new one. For more tips and encouragement between episodes, come hang out with me on Instagram at Finances Without Fear. I'm cheering you on as you simplify your money and strengthen your marriage, one small step at a time.